Hello and happy days to you folks. I hope you guys are having an absolutely amazing day today. Today we're taking a look at the short story. It's by Brian Lumley. It's in this Solaris collection of all of his Cthulhu Mythos stuff, which I'll link you to in the comments below. This was published in 1982. It's called Name and Number for you folks. And so basically this is another one of the Titus Crow occultist series that we've been introduced to in the first book that he wrote. That was the first short story in this collection, Color of the Black, and that sort of a thing too. It's about 34 pages. Basically, what's happening in this collection? This is a collection of his Cthulhu Mythos stuff back when he was regularly writing Cthulhu Mythos stuff early on in his career, before he started writing the novel series Necroscope for you folks, and which is not the Cthulhu Mythos. But he is typically writing in the second and third generation like this. And this is typically run by August Derleth, or Lynn Carter after he dies. I think they sort of takes over. That sort of a thing too, unofficially, running things like Arkham House after Lovecraft died in 1937. And I call that first generation in 1940, about 3 years after he died. The end of the first generation. Now, I've read thousands of Cthulhu Mythos short stories, lots of Lovecraft became my favorite author as a junior in college after my current favorite stuff was fantasy, and I've been following Michael Moorcock from high school, and then R.A. Salvatore was one of my favorite authors. J.R. Tolkien, read tons of fantasy novels and that sort of thing too. And then in college, I read a 3-volume collection of his stuff, of everything that he sort of read. And then I liked that stuff so much, and one of those was the Cthulhu Mythos, and that was in the mid-90s. I picked up every Cthulhu Mythos short collection that was getting published at that time that I read. And I read probably maybe 100 or 150 right then and there, all right, within a couple of weeks. And that sort of a thing too. I've done a deeper dive into that, and that sort of a thing too. Well, when he died, August Derleth founded Arkham House, and then started to, which is a publishing company to keep his stuff alive. But his dream of Cthulhu Mythos was a little different than Lovecraft. It was a little more elemental. He assigned different elements and that sort of a thing too. And he also revealed some of the behind the scenes stuff. And so this is being written by Brian Lumley during that era. And that sort of thing too. Make sense? And so things typically are all about really sort of self-explorations of this and that sort of thing too. So basically what's happening here in Name and Number is that we actually have quite a few Cthulhu Mythos beats and drops in the first maybe 4 or 5 pages of this 44 page, I think, actually 34, sorry, I've refreshed it. A collection for you folks, story. And then he actually will go ahead, and then after that, and he's introduced the concept, he'll leave it behind, which I like, and that sort of thing too. Now, basically here, Titus Crow has a fellow anti-occultist person too, that's his buddy, not as strong or as well-read as Crow, but he's somebody who's an accomplice, and that's what accomplice too. And so he's going to come in, he's going to tell him now the framing device of this is that his house was just destroyed of Titus Crow, and so he's remembering this short story. That's the thing that happened here. And so basically, after the first couple, so what's going to happen is he's going to show us a picture of somebody who is a very, very famous British war material industrialist right after the World War II, who would come out with a lot of military supplies in their industrial complex. And this has actually invested in a few countries too, and that sort of thing too. He has claimed that he has developed something that's going to be better than the nuclear bomb for defense of British Isles that will turn all the other nations, which would have been, at the time, the Soviet Union and China too, both of which were nuclear bomb wielding foes, right? And so that definitely makes sense. They gave him £2 million, which he invested, and that sort of thing too. And he's actually a well-known, very strong guy, beloved, and that sort of thing too. A little on the younger side of things. But basically what will happen is that he will show you his picture, the first picture that's been taken of this person ever to be public. and that sort of a thing too. And then he'll say, Titus Grub, not the main character, will say that looking at this picture really threw him for a loop, because he almost recognized the guy. You can tell this guy's an absolute nasty demonic presence. And that sort of a thing too. Then basically what's going to happen, and then he tells him, and this is about a couple of weeks ago, and then he tells him, but he has died, and so a couple of pages later, and a couple of paragraphs later, and so now he's going to tell the story of this person, and that sort of a thing too. And then he tells him at the beginning, and we get ready for a long story, a few hours long, and then we're going to go to the graveyard in the morning. So now they're going to go to this person's graveyard to check in to see how things are going, and check in on the funeral, and that sort of thing too. And so basically, that's going to be what's happening, and that sort of thing too. So he does have the Cthulhu elements at the beginning, but the characterization and that sort of thing too. Now, basically, name and number here. He basically admits that he is a numerologist. I think it's the name for it. Somebody who believes in the value of numbers, like 666, 777, and that sort of I think too. So basically, that's where the name of that other person and the number comes from. Although it'll actually be more key to the plot. No spoilers. Right, that sort of thing too. But I thought this was an okay short story by Lumley. I wouldn't say it's his best by any stretch of the imagination. And that sort of a thing too. I think it didn't go into any surprises, right? I think there is a surprise twist in like the last page, but I think you can see it coming. And that sort of a thing too. And I wouldn't say that this goes to a place, right, that kind of like the first one, where you can tell what's happening from the first one. And that's sort of like the first page, like the first short story color of black to introduce Titus Grub. Right, and so I think you can definitely kind of see and that sort of a thing too. So I'm probably going to be giving this, because I think that what he does is fine, but how he adds it to the Cthulhu Mythos might feel a little weird to some people. And that sort of thing too. So I'm not sure. So I'm between 6 and 7. So I'm going to give it 6.5 for you folks. I do think it's well done. I think the ending is again predictable. But I think if you were just taking it the short story at face value, not expecting anything, I think other than what would have been told, I think you can see it coming, right, and all that stuff. But if you're not a fan of numerology or adding that to the Cthulhu Mythos, then you might be a little less a fan of this short story too. But I think 6.5 for you folks. But there you go. That's why it's between 6 and 7. Alrighty, for you folks, and there you are. But have you read this short story? What did you think about that? Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments below. Right. As a reminder, I'm not a trained critic of literature. I didn't study fiction and English, right, in college, none of that stuff. I'm just a fan like you are. So I'm not coming to you from a place of expertise. So I'm really just as a fan. I'm definitely happy to sort of engage you with whatever your thoughts are for you folks. But then let me know what your thoughts are. I do other reviews a week of three of these older things, and short stories in this case, also some poems too, some novels, that sort of thing too, in the 3 genres that we cover: fantasy, science fiction, and horror too, right? And then I also do older video games on Wednesday, older serials of movies and TV serials that were oftentimes published when Lovecraft was alive on Saturday, and then older tabletop RPGs or war games, or war games too. And so I hope those 7 things sound like your cup of tea, and if so, great. Welcome to the channel, and please do all the YouTube stuff, like hit the subscribe button, like button, bell icon, like, share, all that stuff. And then also, as you can tell, those 7 older things that I do a week, that's definitely the passion of this channel, right? Finding these older things for you and talking about them for you folks. It doesn't get the hits, but it's the passion, right? It's even where its name comes from too. That's the worst thing about new books. It's a quote by a French philosopher, Jacques Joubert, who says that the worst thing about them was that they kept us from reading the old stuff. And this definitely some older stuff we might have forgotten about in our passion for the new short story, the new novel, the new video game, the new movie, right? We have sometimes forgotten that these things are standing on the shoulders of giants. Not that they're bad by default, but you get the idea. Giants like H.P. Lovecraft, like all those, and like Brian Lumley too, right? And he's definitely a beloved guy. He's definitely involved as a writer. That sort of thing too. So check those out. And there you go. And then finally, I just wanted to thank you so very, very much for just taking some time out of your day and investing it, right? And watching my video, because we all have so many things that are happening in our lives, right? We're pulled in so many different directions too, right? So if you spent this time with me, that's incredibly humbling. And I appreciate that so very, very much. So thanks again, and have an amazing day.